Good evening, all. This is your night before the exam news, looking at GCSE paper 1. So everything in this paper will be stuff that you've learnt in year 10. As you can see, it's 1 hour and 15 minutes long, and your exam starts at 11 a.m. Over the next few slides, you'll see examples of the rag sheet that you can find on Arbor, and it's got all the year 10 content, and any of this content could come up in your exam tomorrow. It's everything we've learned in year 10. Hopefully some of it is fresh in your mind from bits and bobs we've done, but if you're not sure where to go from tonight, I would go through and have a look at the bits that you have indicated are red. Nothing on this slide should be new. We've been using the bug method for quite some time now. I'd encourage you to use it for every question, even if it's a 1 marker, just to make sure that you're answering the question about the right thing. So just to recap, you box the keyword. So is it a state, identify, define, give, or describe? If that is the type of question, you know it's a 1, maybe 2 mark, really short answer. If it's an explain, an analyze, or a discussion question, you know that you've got to apply some of your knowledge, so it's more than just a definition. And then the longer answers tend to be analyze, discuss, justify, evaluate, and this requires more in depth, so using the sort of PEE method that we've looked at in the last lesson or so. Once you've boxed the keywords, so you know the level of information that's required in the answer, then you need to underline the keywords. And this is really important to make sure we don't have any misconceptions. So if there's a question about tennis, to make sure that we're not talking about a rugby game or a football game. And then go back over and read the question as a whole so we know what the question's asking. And in addition to that, I would also highlight how many marks the question's worth. If it's worth 3 marks, you need to have 3 bits of information. If it's worth 5 marks, you need to make sure you've given at least 5 pieces of information. The 5 mark justify answers seem to be a little bit cheeky because they require you to have 5 different points. So when I talk shortly about justifying in longer answers, I'm going to want you to pick a point and expand on it. But if it's a 5 marker or a 3 or a 4, the examples seem to want you to give 5 different points. So just giving 1 point and expanding won't get you the 5 marks. So if you have a 5 marker for justify, you need to make sure it relates to the sport or the component of fitness or whatever the question's about, but you need to make sure you don't repeat yourself and that you need to try and give yourself 5 different points in order to get maximum marks on that paper. Cheeky. The 6 to 9 mark questions are quite easy structurally because the idea is that you use this method of PEEL. So you give a point, you give an example, you explain it, and then you can link the point back to the question. And the exam board want to see terminology like this means that, furthermore, in addition. Information like this will help you expand your answers further. So for a 9 mark answer, you might actually have 3 points, but as long as you provide a sporting example, elaborate on it, that will give you your 9 points in turn. What I've tried to do here is put the 6 to 9 mark terminology in a bit of a useful table. So if you get an evaluate question, you have got to make sure you talk about both sides. So whether it's a strength or a weakness or an advantage or disadvantage. If you don't talk about both sides, you'll be capped on how many marks you can get. So you could give a beautiful answer given all the strengths of a certain question, but if you haven't given weakness, you won't be able to get the marks. And then underneath for evaluate, you can see that they want to see things like whereas, in contrast, furthermore, on the other hand. Then if you have an analyze question, they want you to break it down and explain it in more detail. So this is because, this highlights this, therefore, firstly, this sort of terminology, they want you to analyze it in a little bit more detail to be able to demonstrate the higher level of understanding. And then similarly to what I've just said about the justify question, you need to justify your answer and give support and give evidence. So this is because X, Y, and Z. Terminology like I believe on one hand, whereas. So I just thought some of you might like a little sentence starter or a bit of terminology that you can use in those longer answer questions just to get you started. I've created a slide here where it's got all of the levers on one page, which will definitely come up in your exam. So this is to be used as a revision page. You can see you've got a definition, an example within the body, and then the diagrams that you need to be able to draw yourself. Planes and axes, so this slide and the next slide are also examples of things that might come up in the exam, so definitely worth having a little look at. And then you can see the third slide after that is putting all the information together. So make sure you spend some time this evening double checking that you understand planes and axes and the ones how they work together. So this is a question that we would have looked at in year 10. And the question is, performers may train at high altitude. It usually takes place over 2,000 meters above sea level for at least 30 days. Discuss, so boxing the word discuss because that's the key word. Whether altitude training, so we underline altitude training so we know that that's the type of training we are talking about, is an effective method, and I've underlined effective because we're talking about is it a good method of training for a long distance swimmer. So we need to make sure that when we're discussing this, we are relating it to a long distance swimmer. And this is where the underlining becomes really important because there have been in the past tendencies for someone to start twittering on about a runner or something else. I've also boxed that it's worth 5 marks. So for a discuss question, I've bugged it first. Then I'm going to give for and against points because it's a discuss question. So what is the advantages and disadvantages of altitude training? And then I'm going to relate it to long distance swimming. So what effect does altitude training have on long distance swimming? And then you're going to talk about the effects and how they're short term and how long they last. And if we do that in that structure, you'll see from the next page where you've got the answers, it will give you a fully rounded 5-mark answer. Here's an example of a possible 6-mark answer. As you can see, I've bugged it, so it's an evaluate question. And we've underlined the agility test, and we've talked about a netball player and a 200-meter runner. So evaluate whether the Illinois agility test is more relevant to a netball player than to a 200-meter runner. So what they want to see here is knowledge of the agility test. So what does it look like? So you could draw it or you could describe it. Then they want to see you apply agility to netball and a 200-meter runner. And then they want you to talk about the importance and the validity. So is the Illinois agility test a suitable test for a 200-meter runner, for example, which I'm quite sure you're aware probably isn't very viable because it's a race in a straight line. Okay, it's got a bend, but there's no changing direction at speed, which is obviously the definition of agility. So what I'd like you to do now is pause this video and have a go at this question because it's worth 6 marks. And then when you've had a go at it, if you restart the question, you'll see that the mark scheme is on the next page. This slide here is about misconceptions, and you can see I've put in a table the words that seem to get crossed over the most. So there might be a question that asks about a component of fitness, and then suddenly someone's talking about a sit and reach test. So it's really important that you understand the difference between a component of fitness, a type of training, a principle training, and a fitness test, because I think you've got the knowledge for all of those, but we need to make sure that we're talking about the right thing. So if a question's asking about a type of training, we know we're talking about fartlek, continuous, interval, etc. Another couple of misconceptions that are really common are reversibility. So people writing that it's doing something backwards, whereas we know that reversibility is if you stop training, the impact you've had will reduce. So whilst it will decrease, it's nothing to do with doing a circuit backwards or anything like that. So please make sure that we know that reversibility is if we stop training, we lose it. Use it or lose it. And then the other one that is Mrs. people drop marks for is calling muscle shortened names like quads, abs. You need to use full names, so abdominals, quadriceps in your exam paper to make sure you get those marks. The other thing is you have got to put a dot in the multiple choice. If you tick it or circle it, when it comes to the real exam and they get scanned through the machine, you won't get the mark for it even if it's correct. So please make sure you put a dot in the multiple choice answers. So what can you do tonight? You can go through your rag sheet. You can then revise things you are not sure of. Please do not revise stuff that you know. Whilst it makes you feel good and you are confident, it's actually not going to help with the things that you don't quite understand yet. Practice exam questions. Get out your Year 10 book, which hopefully you've had out all half term. Go through the questions we've completed in class. Write them out on a whiteboard. Use Gizmo to revise. Use your flashcards. Get someone to test you. Siblings, parents, guardians, grandparents, anyone that can read. Get them to test you on your flashcards. Put a pile of ones you know, a pile of ones you don't know. Have a break. Come back to them half an hour later. Go through the pile you don't know again. And hopefully it'll start to whittle down so it's all the stuff you do know. Please get a good night's sleep. There is no point cramming revision in at 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night. Your brain will not work. It will not take enough information in. Get some exercise, move your body. Don't just sit on your sofa and revise for 4 hours straight because your hormones will stop your brain working effectively. So have 20 minutes revision, get up, move, do something, go walk your dog, go to a class, go to football training, whatever it is. But keep exercising, keep moving because it'll help your revision. And please get off your phone. Please don't sit there and scroll for hours on end watching aimless TikToks and all that drivel you lot watch. Just get a good night's sleep. You got this. So tomorrow morning, have a good breakfast because you can't sit exams on an empty stomach. So make sure you've got something. Don't want to hear your bellies rumbling during your exam. The hub is open from 7 a.m. So if you want to come in and do some revision, there'll be some resources there for you. Bring in any flashcards that you've still not mastered yet so we can have some revision in the morning. Revise with people that are good influence on you. So don't sit with someone that you know you're going to have a good old gossip with, good old chat with. Please be academically selfish. It's time to revise. It's time to lock in. It's time for you to put yourself first. So sit with people that are a good influence on you. Mr. Thompson and I will be there probably around 7:30ish to help you if you've got any questions or if you need any support. And I've created a revision warm-up sheet to help reactivate. There's 2 of those, so there's plenty of questions to keep you going. For your exam, you will need 2 black pens just in case one runs out or doesn't work, a ruler, in case there's any graph work or anything to do, a calculator and a pencil. The exam will last 1 hour 15 minutes, which is exactly the same length as the one you'll sit in the summer, unless obviously you have extra time and therefore your exam will be longer. And your exam starts at 11 a.m. after break time. My final words of wisdom. Bug every question. When I'm marking them, I want to see that you have listened and that you are writing the right type of answer for the right question. Highlight how many marks the question is worth. So is it worth 3? If so, have you given 3 points? Attempt every question. So don't leave a blank, just have a go because you never know, you might get something. Writing something is better than writing nothing. If you write something, you've got a chance of getting something. If you write nothing, you've got no chance of getting anything. So please attempt every question. If you get a question that you're like, I really don't know what this is, put a little star by it and come back to it later. But please do not leave any blank answers. To be fair, as a class, you're really quite good at attempting to answer all the questions. Use all your time. As you know, you've got plenty of time to sit this exam, but make sure you use it. So don't rush through it so you're finished in 45 minutes and you've got half an hour left to do. Take your time, answer it, structure it well, bug it, underline, and take your time. When you finish your exams, go back and reread your answers. Go over the questions again, read your answers. Don't second question yourself because some questions are that simple. You might think that's too simple, that can't be the answer. It probably actually is the answer, okay? If it's a discussed question, make sure you give both sides of the argument like we've discussed before. And finally, make sure you've got a good understanding of plyometric training. You won't know this in your real exam, but for this exam, it is the 9-mark question. So make sure your understanding of plyometric training is good enough. And best of luck. Do your best. I'm sure you're going to smash it.